Today is July 26, 2017. This is George and Grace. And George entered the office in early May, second week of May, and George entered the office with COPD. George, could you just share a little bit how severe the COPD was and how much trouble you were actually having?
Well, walking up a flight of stairs was certainly a challenge, and just doing any kind of physical exercise or physical exertion, I'd get tired very quickly and just have to pause and rest, do anything.
And how much tightness in your chest with activity did you have? And
it was really tight. It was hard to catch my breath.
Yeah,
I felt almost like I was choking or drowning, or just couldn't get air in.
could not get air in. Grace, what was that like watching as a wife? What were you seeing happening to George prior to him starting the program?
Well, I could see him slowing down, and that really concerned me. So I was really happy when he decided to take matters into his own hands and research options that he could do, and I was particularly pleased that he chose a natural path.
And what kind of changes have you seen over the last 8 or 9 weeks since starting your program?
I certainly have a lot more endurance. My pulse rate is improved immensely, especially even when I'm walking. I'm more physically active than I was before.
Do you have to stop and catch your breath like you were doing to the degree that you were doing?
Not at all. Not at all.
You mentioned to me last week when I saw you that you have properties that you cut the grass, etc. And
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and your ability to kind of do your work?
It varies somewhat based on the humidity level.
Yes.
Because when it gets high humidity,
Yes.
it certainly is a challenge.
Yes.
But no, I'm doing a lot more work without having to stop and rest as often during the work. I can stop at a property and work for 20 minutes, half hour, and then pack up and move on to the next one. And
Whereas,
before I'd do some, and I'd rest a couple times during the stop because it's just I couldn't breathe.
and you didn't have the endurance that you do now,
Right
the capacity to do the work.
there, yeah, it's much improved.
Much improved.
Yeah.
Grace, you mentioned you guys now are able to go for walks. Yeah, what have you observed?
Well, we recently took a walk around a little lake near us called Grass Lake, and we were able to take the whole length of the lake all the way around, and he was not winded. We were able to keep a nice steady pace. He didn't ever lag behind. He was right there with me, and it was enjoyable because I'm looking forward to more walks.
And what was happening prior to that? Were you able, George, you mentioned to me it was difficult.
Yeah, well, I could keep up for a while, and then I'd start lagging behind. I'd ask her to slow down, stop and sit down and rest a little bit to catch my breath for a few minutes. And
What percent improvement would you say you've had?
that's
I mean, just subjectively, that's a subjective question. But
yeah.
in your functional capacity of just doing life, what percent improvement would you say you have?
20% maybe,
20?
something like that. Yeah, I mean,
Is
I'm not ready to go
jogging.
jogging or climbing mountains, but yeah, the direction is and they're going in the right direction, going up rather than down.
Just in closing, you came in, we did lab work, we did food sensitivity testing, we changed your diet. Could you just talk about that briefly and how difficult that was?
The diet is a challenge because we travel some, and it's really hard to, when you're flying and just eating in airports, to find food that works well in the diet, the rotation diet. Even driving, it's a little better driving because you can pack some stuff with you, but there certainly is a limit.
Is it doable or is it untenable?
Oh, well, I do the best I can. Otherwise, I mean, when you're preparing it yourself, it certainly is doable.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How about the supplements and just taking the whey products as well as the other nutrition? Difficult? Not too bad?
Again, when traveling, it's a challenge because, flying, I had to pack it on ice in my suitcase. I couldn't carry it with me.
Yep.
And, if you're 6 hours, 8 hours, or whatever, you end up missing. And same with my work sometimes. I mean, if I leave in the morning and don't get back till later in the afternoon, I'll miss my noon dose at times and have to.
But all in all,
it's
manageable.
Certainly manageable.
Manageable. Do you mind if I just show your spirometry test
No,
results?
not at all.
So this is George's spirometry test results. This was his first test on the right, and this was his second test on the left. And I'm just going to briefly summarize, but this shows his ability to inspire and expire, and it was very poor. And if we look at the interpretation, it shows severe obstruction. This was a test we did last week, and you can see how his ability to inspire compared to before on his initial test has dramatically improved, and his expiration has improved also, not as dramatically as inspiration. And the thing I mentioned to George was his forced vital capacity and his forced expiratory volume and his forced expiratory flow 25, all of them that have improved, and his forced vital capacity actually improved by 15% because on his initial test he was at 75% predicted right here, and now he's at 90% of his predicted value, and the other numbers improved as well. So, George, I'm pleased with the improvement in 8 or 9 weeks. Great job on your effort, and let's just continue making more progress. I think there is absolutely more room for improvement.
I hope so.
I believe so. George, do I have your permission to share your story with doctors, students, or patients anywhere?
Yes, my only concern is this does have my full name on it.
Okay, we will fix that. Any restriction on that?
No, that's fine.
Thank you.